Hello and welcome to my video on this channel. And briefly today we'll be looking at quadratic equations. And quadratic equations have the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where b is the coefficient of x and c is the constant. There are three methods in solving quadratic equations. We have the factorization method, completing the square method, and the quadratic formula. But briefly today, we'll be looking at the factorization method, which is the first method, and it's one of the methods in solving quadratic equation. We'll be looking at factorization method. And from the term factorization, what does it mean? It simply means that you're trying to find two numbers that will act as factors in this equation. So, for instance, let's say we are given this question that says x squared. We're given this question that says x squared plus 10x plus 25. Question says x squared plus 10x plus 25. And in order for us to solve these questions, there are three steps that I have derived that we tested to work on this equation. The first step says find two numbers whose product is a constant and their sum or difference is the coefficient of x. Substitute these two numbers into the equation to replace the coefficient of x, which is b. Divide the first half of the equation and second half of the equation by the lowest divisible number or alphabet. It says again, I'll repeat again. Find two numbers whose product is the constant c and their sum or difference is the coefficient of x, which is b. Substitute these two numbers into the equation to replace the coefficient of x, which is b, and divide the first half of the equation and second half of the equation by the lowest divisible number or alphabet. If you don't understand these steps, don't bother, don't worry. You're going to use the steps in solving this question, which says x squared plus 10x plus 25. Now, please listen up. This is coefficient of x. This is coefficient. Sorry. And this is the constant. That's a constant. So we are asked now to find this equation. Factorize this equation using factorize this quadratic equation. And now for us to do this, the first step says we should find two numbers where the product is a constant c and their sum or difference coefficient x, which is b. Now I remember I told you that from this equation, the general equation, I told you that this is the coefficient and this is constant. Using this idea in this question now, that means this is the coefficient of x, this is coefficient of x, this is coefficient of x, and this is the constant from the idea I just gave. So they say we should find two numbers that those two numbers must give you the product. The two numbers must, when multiplied together, must give you this constant, and when added or subtracted must give you this coefficient. What does it mean? Let's say we have two numbers which are 2 and 2. Let's say plus 2 and plus 2. Plus 2 plus 2 and 2, which is gives us 4 when added. And when you do 2 times 2, it also gives us 4. But you see that the constant, the product, is not the constant, and their sum is not the coefficient. So for us to get those two numbers, we'll keep on trying. Let's use 5 and 5. Let's say we have 5 and 5. Now 5 plus 5 and plus 5 and plus 5. When you add plus 5 and 5 together, 5 and 5, you have 10, which means this is the coefficient. And when you do 5 times 5, which is product, 25, it gives us 25. So the two numbers we're going to use are 5 because the sum, which is 5 and 5, give us 10, which is the coefficient, and the product, which is 5 times 5, give us 25, which is coefficient. Remember that's the constant. Remember I said that the coefficient, the two numbers must give you the sum or difference. When you add those two numbers together, they must give you the coefficient, or when you subtract them, they must give you the coefficient. And the constant is that those two numbers must, when multiplied together, must give you the constant. So we have seen that those two numbers are 5 and 5. So we have written them down. Those two numbers for x squared plus 10x plus 10x plus 25, because the two numbers are plus 5 and plus 5. So we know the two numbers are plus 5 and plus 5. Since we know the two numbers are plus 5 and plus 5, what next do we do? We from the second step, say substitute these two numbers into the equation to replace the coefficient of x, which is b. So this is the coefficient of x. Remember I told you from the general method, the coefficient of x, which is b. So these two numbers now from the second step is going to substitute this coefficient of x, which is 10 here. We're going to substitute it. So this guy is going to go out, and we're writing this equation. We have x squared plus 5x plus 5x plus 25 equals to 0. Recall I said it's only the coefficient that are leaving off. This x now will now multiply, will now make itself 2 because of these two numbers that are substituting into this equation. So we have x squared plus 5x plus 5x plus 25. So the next step is divide the first half of the equation and the second half of the equation. Divide the first half of the equation and second half of the equation by the lowest divisible number or alphabet. What does it mean? It means that this is the first half of the equation, this is the first half, and this is the second half. So it says, what it says is that divided by the lowest divisible number alphabet. If you look at these two equations, if you look at x squared plus 5x, look at this the first half of the equation, this second half. This x squared plus 5x, what's common in the both of them? What can divide both of them? It's simple x. X is common in the both of them. So dividing this over x and dividing this over x, we have x squared divided by x is giving us x, and we have 5x divided by x is giving us 5. They are common now. X divided x will give us 5x, and x squared divided by x will give us x. We have x plus 5. We'll put the answer we've gotten in bracket, and the number that we used to divide it, which is x, will be outside the bracket. Remember I said what we used to divide will be outside the bracket. The solution, or the answer to our division is going to be inside the bracket. Then what we're going to do next, we apply the same principle here. What's common in the both equation? What can divide both of them? We have 5x and we have 25. From your simple multiplication and division, you know that 5 can divide both sides. So dividing here by 5 and dividing here by 5, we have that 5 divided by 5 is 1. So we have x plus, and 25 divided by 5, we have 5. So this is plus 5, and this is plus 5. So rewriting this equation, we have it as x plus 5 and x plus 5. Therefore, we have x plus 5 equals to 0. That's x equals to minus 5. We also have x plus 5 equals to 0. So x equals to minus 5. So this is the answer of the equation. X is minus 5 and x is minus 5. Thank you for watching. Gracias.